All right. So the first one was, would you rather have Hugin or Munin as a companion?
Good question. Very good question. Honestly, I would probably say Moonin, because, and I think that probably just goes to my own. I have this. Don't really care to say it publicly, but I'll do it anyway. I have this really deep-seated fear of like Alzheimer's and losing my memory, right? Because I view that our memories are such a deep part of ourselves, and so when it comes to that question, I would much prefer to keep my memory.
After you, I had this question formulated before we spoke, obviously.
Yeah.
But after hearing your very moving and compelling origin story and how Odin was such a prominent presence for you, I'm like, when I get to this, if he doesn't say Munin, I'm gonna be like, what? Are you really? It's been, because he fears for the loss of his memory more than anything too. So
Yes.
that tracks. Okay. One modern misconception about heathenry that you'd like to abolish or banish if you could.
Mm. This may be a controversial answer, but I'm not a big fan of the way that heathenry has been so heavily affected by Wicca and a lot of the New Age stuff. And that's not to say anything bad about it. I have friends who are Wiccan, and I started out my spiritual journey. Once I moved away from Christianity as a Wiccan, I even still in my jewelry box right up there, I have a pentacle with Elder Futhark runes around it. So that's not to say anything bad about Wicca, but when we're talking about authentic traditional indigenous Germanic heathenry and old ways heathenry, there's been such an influx of influence from a lot of these other new age movements and things of that nature. I wouldn't necessarily banish it from existence, but to just create that separation between this is other stuff and this is what real old ways heathenry is. If I could snap my fingers and make that more simple, so people would understand, this is an authentic old ways thing and this is more of a new ways thing, and you can pick whichever one you want, but this is what it is. It's just to foment that understanding, because so many people don't grasp that concept. That's probably it.
Yeah, I get that, man. Because you do, any newcomer to heathenry, they search online, do a Google search for, heathen holidays. They're gonna probably see a graphic that constitutes like the Wiccan Wheel of the Year model
Yeah.
with names of holidays on an eight-spoked wheel
And that
graphic.
that's one of the reasons why I actually, in addition to your work and the work of Robert Sass, because just earlier today I published his article on, or I shared rather, his article on Altsadu about the 2026 Heathen calendar on the Heathen Herald, and then on Norse Imports dot, I don't know if it's .com or .org, forgive me, but
Thor's business there, yeah.
yes. Okay. So you're familiar with it. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy the articles that he has done as well about differentiating between the heathen calendar and the Wiccan calendar and whatnot. And it's not only just that, but it's also like I one thing that I have observed is that there are some people in the heathenry movement that are so gung ho and want to be so completely disconnected from anything they even perceive to be potentially Abrahamic that they will even reject authentic old ways traditions because, in their perspective, it's too connected to Abrahamic. Two perfect examples: kneeling and prayer. There are so many who say, oh,
Mhm.
heathens don't kneel, heathens don't pray. Yes, we do. There are literally historical examples, which you've written about, I've read on your blog, that exemplify perfectly. This is a part of our practice. It doesn't mean you have to do it. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it is a historical reality. It is something that our ancestors did.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's the beautiful part of learning, you know what I mean? It goes back to what we were talking earlier about with syncretism and shared beliefs, shared cultures, and I mean, the the examples that we do have of what you're talking about specifically with humbling, lowering, bowing, kneeling, prostrating.
Hmm.
These examples come from sources that are, I mean, they're various. So
Yeah.
you have Tacitus that talks about, I think Adam of Bremen, maybe,
Yeah.
definitely Ibn Fadlan, who is an Arab emissary. You know what I mean? So and he's spending time with the Swedish Rus
Exactly.
along the Volga. You know what I mean? At a time, so it was, uh, did it exist? Sure. Were people doing it? Yes. Does it mean that you have to do it now? No.
Right.
But
Exactly.
it's an example, like you say. It's just like it's not incorrect to objectively observe, like say that this
Yeah.
is fine. You don't have to be proud or you have to be weird about it. It is true. It's historically documented.
Exactly.